Access to water and sanitation in Sub-Saharan Africa is improving, but far too slowly. According to data from the World Health Organization and UNICEF's Joint Monitoring Program, 840 million people in the region had access to basic drinking water services in 2024, up from 587 million a decade ago. But progress hasn't kept pace with population growth. Nearly 1 in 3 people in Sub-Saharan Africa still lack basic water access. The gap reflects service delivery failures, underinvestment, and weak governance, all made worse by climate shocks and rapid urbanization. I spoke with Soma Moulik, practice manager at the World Bank, and she said the lender is working on regional programs to boost access to potable water in the continent. Take a listen.
This really calls for a systems change, moving away from infrastructure and focusing more on institutions, sector governance, turning the utilities, making more responsive local governments, as well as to see that where we can bring in innovative financing, and as well as to crowd in more and more private financing. We know that also the current spending gaps are huge. In any country that we find in Africa right now, that the public financing is even less than 1% of the GDP, which is even lesser than what countries are spending on education, which is around 3.5%. In the health, the spending is around 5 or 6%, while for water supply and sanitation, it's just less than 1%. That's a huge difference, which also means that more and more financing needs to crowd in, and that means more and more innovative financing to come in, and also at the same time build up the utilities performance and changing the sector governance.
From the bank's perspective, given the myriad of challenges you just outlined there, how is the bank prioritizing what needs to be addressed first?
From the bank side, the biggest thrust would be to see that we will be able to generate more jobs. And water is going to be the most essential driver for creating and inducing jobs. We know that in Africa, 2/3 of the labor force is dependent on water-related jobs, and that's where most of the jobs will be created. Given that premise, more and more work is needed around building up strong institutions, sector governance that is needed, making it more accountable in terms of service delivery, to see that there are lasting impacts coming in.
Can we talk about the financing? Because it really seems to come down to that. What form of financing is needed? Because the World Bank, we know oftentimes loans, concessional loans, but then we know a number of countries are also turning to commercial loans. When you look at the current environment that a number of African countries are in, what do you think will actually push progress forward?
If you look at financing, we are still looking at public financing. That's where most of the water sector is currently in. And to crowd in private financing, we need to create those enabling conditions, particularly better regulatory frameworks and making utilities creditworthy. Right now, the number of private financing is still very, very small, and it is only looking at the niche areas such as PPPs or performance-based contracts for reducing non-revenue water or in wastewater management. But most of the commercial financing to come in would actually mean that the sector needs to move faster in terms of delivering the services, and bringing it more creditworthy. So right now, even if you see there are opportunities, there is a huge opportunity to crowd in private financing if we change the sector governance. And this is only possible when leaders commit to turning the sector around. We have seen some examples of blended finance as well as using guarantees to de-risk projects. We have an excellent example in Angola with the Beta Water Guarantee, which is about in enhancing an expansion of water services in the city of Luanda. It was only possible with the IBRD guarantee of $500 million IBRD guarantee that leveraged 1.1 billion of commercial financing. This is just an example, and we know that these are possibles. And we are working with our own World Bank group by bringing in the new instruments, the new tools for financing, by bringing in IFC and MIGA more and more into the discussion and dialogue for water.